Today's guest has never gone viral, but he's the reason behind the most viral campaigns in 2025. He's 23, running a company that's generated over 1 billion views, and now he's building an AI that makes going viral a science and not just a guessing game. So Revan, you've worked with huge names like Mr. Beast and Jake Paul, names that 99% of people can't even get a reply from. So how did you?
I think the biggest thing is about really surrounding yourself and attaching yourself to the right people.
But you clearly didn't start with Mr. Beast on your resume. So tell me, what's the actual shortcut and what did you offer that made someone with 1 billion followers actually take a chance on you?
There's definitely shortcuts. I can give us a quick story on how the Mr. Beast podcast and how I had the chance to work with him on a few different things.
Without really breaking any NDAs, what's the most surprising creator you've worked with that nobody would expect?
My probably favorite creator that I've had the chance to work with and manage his name is Zach Matthews. So Zach and I met through Jake Paul, actually. He's fantastic. He's definitely got a unique creative process, which you can only appreciate when working with him.
Have you posted anything where the person you're working with looked bad? And if so, like what really happened then? I'm Rayyan, and welcome back to the GenZEO Playbook podcast. Today's guest has never gone viral, but he's the reason behind the most viral campaigns in 2025. He's 23, running a company that's generated over 1 billion views, and now he's building an AI that makes going viral a science and not just a guessing game. So if you're building anything in the creator economy in 2026, this episode is your winning playbook. Revan, thanks so much for joining us here today. And before we start, I just wanted to ask, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to
Thank you.
chat.
So, Revan, you've worked with huge names like Mr. Beast and Jake Paul, names that 99% of people can't even get a reply from. So, how did you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest thing is about really surrounding yourself and attaching yourself to the right people, because purely you're not going to get in that space alone. And so I've been very lucky and fortunate to have made the relationships with people that have made the relationships, and sort of what I say finessed my way in, and then once there, provide a lot of value and really try to double down and keep going on to the next one, and so that you don't lose that momentum, I would say.
So, Revan, most people who are trying to break into the creator economy think they need a massive portfolio to land big clients. But you clearly didn't start with Mr. Beast on your resume. So tell me, what's the actual shortcut and what did you offer that made someone with 1 billion followers actually take a chance on you?
Yeah, I would definitely say there's definitely shortcuts and things that I think just happen organically in life that if you don't put yourself in those situations, that you'll sort of never get the ability to uh, make happen. And so I can give us a quick story on how the Mr. Beast podcast and how I had the chance to work with him on a few
Sure.
things came about. So I got invited in, I would say, summer of 2024 to a sort of get together. It was my alma mater, USC, was having a Olympians sort of party, and I had known the guy that was hosting it, and so did my co-founder. And so my co-founder had invited me and said, "Oh, we should go to this party. Maybe could be some good clients." And we were working on a little bit of a different vertical before, mostly with athletes. And so I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." And there I met a guy named Rye Benjamin, who's a 3-time Olympic gold medalist. And Rye had said, I'm thinking about doing this podcast with Noah and Grant. Noah being Noah Lyles and Grant being Grant Holloway, both other,
Wow.
gold medal Olympians. And from there, I basically was like, oh, like the podcast, that sounds great. Like, tell me more about it. I got into the weeds. I had sort of worked adjacent to podcasts in the past, but never, on mine fully.
Mhm.
And so I convinced them over the next couple weeks to let me do the podcast for them. I know they had a bunch of other interests and offers from other podcast companies that were
Mhm.
truly podcast companies. But I think really just won them over in terms of like my enthusiasm and ability to say like, we're just going to get shit done, and we're going to make it happen rather than, somebody else that's they're going to be 14th on the priority list. And so from there, Noah had already built a relationship with Mr. Beast, and just through some circumstance, got to work on a few different videos and had Mr. Beast come on our podcast. So really, yeah, just sort of making sure that I'm in the right room, and then also leaving myself open for serendipity to occur rather
Mhm.
than try to force it.
Yeah, yeah, that was a great story, and it shows really like how much value connections really have.
Definitely, definitely, yeah, I think, like, honestly, a lot of it is luck and just being in the right place at the right time, but also what you do with that luck, and the opportunity that you create.
So, Revan, without really breaking any NDAs, what's the most surprising creator you've worked with that nobody would expect? And what did working with them teach you? Like, how do they really think about content differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say my probably favorite creator that I've had the chance to work with and manage is Zachary, or his name is Zach Matthews. So Zach and I met through Jake Paul actually, and he's fantastic, and he's definitely got a unique creative process which you can only appreciate when working with him.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I would say, like, we've done a bunch of awesome campaigns, with Zach, like working with Kalshi, working with Dr. Squatch, working with Young LA, and a bunch of other just phenomenal partners. And yeah, I would say sort of what surprised me about Zach is Zach really truly understands his audience, I think better than almost anybody else does. Therefore, when he does ideate, he very quickly knows like this is going to work or this is not going to work,
Hmm.
which is really helpful when it comes to brand partnerships as well. So when a brand is pitching Zach to do a certain concept, he can very quickly say like, "Hey, this isn't going to work." So like, if you want like less views and you want your idea to work, great. But if you want more views and you want my idea, that's what's going to happen. And so I think it's been really awesome to see how quickly he can pivot around and really create the best idea possible for his audience, which has led to some awesome branded campaigns. We just had one recently that did, I think it's over 30 million views now on Instagram for an
Wow.
actual ad, which is fantastic. Probably the best I've ever seen on an advertisement without, boost or paid
Mm.
spend. So 30 million organic views on an ad is uh, quite unique, I would say. And so we've also had some other ones with 15, with 5, with 10. And so I think he just really understands the value he creates and his audience. So it's been awesome to work with him.
Hmm. So, how would you say a creator like really gets to understand their audience and do what kind of Zach is doing?
Yeah, I think Zach is really just in tune, and my guess, and I can't speak for Zach, but probably just watches a ton of content that is similar or that overlaps with his audience,
Hmm.
and can sort of ride off trends. I think what Zach's really great at is identifying a trend that is happening or a story that is being created in the news, or in general, and really like work his ability around that.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't really know. Zach is sort of a unique guy in terms of like he just gets it, like he just gets what works. And so there's a lot of things where I've had discussions with Zach where I try to like pitch an idea and I'm like, I'm not the creative and very easy to see like, okay, our ideas are sometimes different. Sometimes we have the same idea and we work together and we create a really awesome video. But I would have to say mostly it's Zach just being super in depth and in tune. And that's only by sort of repetitions. I mean, Zach has been doing the same Zacharific bit for 4 years. And so he really
Totally
just
understand.
gets the nuance and how things end up panning out. So.
Exactly. So, Revan, can you take us through the actual thought process when a new creator comes to you? Like, what are the first three things you evaluate before even going to the content?
Yeah, I would say that it really is like how much does their audience love them versus how much is this a one off. I
Mhm.
would say that like the people that I tend to work with are pretty polarizing. You love them or you hate them.
Mhm.
Noah Lyles, Zacharific, even Mr. Beast. People are either the biggest fans in the world of these people
Mhm.
or they absolutely despise them. And I think what that lends to is just the ability for them to go viral for people either, hate watching or for actually loving them. And I think that's something to really look at. And obviously you want people to like hate them for the right reasons, right?
Mhm.
Like because they're jealous or because the content doesn't make them feel a certain way or like something about that rather than like an actual issue say something that, that is a brand safety issue. But I would say like that's sort of what I look at. I really like to work with people that I like
Mhm.
over everything. And so, I mean, if there's opportunity to be had in business and we get along and I can lend my network and vice versa, that's something I look for. But I don't really do too much of a technical deep dive on a yes or a no. I just
Mhm.
like usually look for like, is this person polarizing? And if so, it's probably a good sign.
Revan, do you think creativity is overrated in content today? Or do you think data is the real edge? Because I think a content creator with great analytics will always outperform a talented creator.
I would say yes and no, and I would definitely say it depends on the medium that the content is in. I would say for short form, data somewhat goes out the window. I think in editing styles, that can definitely play a part in terms of data and what you look at for a hook. But really in terms of the, you know, UGC, on screen, face on screen, I think that's a lot comes down to creativity. Something that I admire about what Mr. Beast or Jimmy says is, his purple cow theory about how you driving down the road and you see a bunch of cows on the side of the road, you like don't really care to look twice. But if you're driving and you look and you see a purple cow, you're just going to stare at that. And so doing the things that, haven't been done, or a variation that is just impossible to take your eyes off of is really important. And that's more creativity. And I think the data really lends itself to that creativity. But in long form sort of podcast content, which is what I work a lot in now, I would say definitely looking at the data, over the hook, over the intro, over the style of questions, the way you're cutting, how you're setting your guests up, and then also like your outros, your CTAs are all very important. And I think it just really depends on the style. So yeah, like a creator, say a Jake Paul, Zachary, David Dobrik. A lot I think is less data dependent and more on their personality and their creativity and the way they
Mhm.
actually speak to the camera. But also their history. Like if you see David Dobrik, you see Jake Paul, you see Zachary, you see a familiar face on the screen, you're probably going to tend to watch it. And so I think that just comes down to being in the game for a certain amount of time. But then when I think it's podcasting content, even on short form, that it's very data driven because you were talking about a subject, it's pretty stagnant, and there's ways to spice it up. And I think a lot of that is shown in people like the Diary of CEO, basically trying to work on every inch of their content when it comes to the data and what the data is saying. But then also you see guys like Rogan who have just been in the game for so long, who everybody knows, who pull basically millions of views every episode, no matter what.
Mhm.
And so I think it can be a real edge for people. But then I also think like there is a benefit of being in the game for so long and having that repetition.
Mhm. So, Revan, can you tell me how a content creator will understand the difference in like how to make a content or how to make a video stick with like their audience? Like you were saying about the purple cow, like how does a content creator understand how to build content that will make people stick and just continue to watch until the end of the video?
Yeah, I think it's really by first identifying like, have people seen this? Have I seen this before? So I
Mhm.
think if you look at basically any Mr. Beast video, what you're gonna see is like, okay, I've never watched a video where he locked 100 pilots in a plane or outside of a plane. It's like, okay, I've never seen that. I gotta at least watch some of it to see if like this is interesting.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that you can do that, or you can have conversations that you might have not heard before with certain people, which could be very impactful, or at least even the way you question certain people. Like, for instance, I'll give one of my clients a shout out, James Sexton, who's the divorce lawyer.
Mhm.
And I think James must have been on, I don't know, 20 plus podcasts, big podcasts at this point.
Mhm.
And they all seem to go pretty viral. And I think that's because he's talking about the same topics, but he's being prompted and he's responding in a different way each time, to where like people will know, but they're like, oh, I didn't hear that portion yet,
Mhm.
and want to stick around. In terms of how you can go about doing that, I would definitely say, like, yeah, like, have I seen this before? But then also like when you're watching back the video, it's like, am I bored at any parts of this? And I think it's really hard for people to that are in the content to feel like they're being bored. But I think
Mhm.
producers, editors, it's very easy to be like, okay, this is a dull moment. But also it's hosts, even the same way, you ask questions, like you're very much like on to the next one. There's not like a bunch of like chitter chatter in between. And I think that's something that can be great and can be also, not so great, in the same sense of like when I watch a Diary of a CEO interview, like that interview is built for attention. Like
Mhm.
I can feel that because as soon as the guest is done, I'm on the next question. I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this now. But I think also it loses some of its conversational ability, where like, on a Rogan or on another podcast, there is so much more of a dialogue, to
Mhm.
where I feel like, oh, I'm actually here,
Mhm.
versus just like question after question after question. And so I think there are, pros and cons of that. But I do identify that both styles probably work. It just depends on who the host is and the audience they're trying to, work with.
So, Revan, you have an edge on podcasting, right? So, what would you advise someone like me as a podcaster to do? Would you say more conversational, more like right to the next question? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do, as far as I've seen, is anticipate the answer person's going to give. good or bad, and then instantly have a rebuttal for it. And this doesn't have to be like a necessarily like an argument rebuttal, but just a follow up ready on hand. I
Mhm.
think that also helps the conversation flow. So, like for instance, like plenty of questions I've probably answered, and like just now, you probably were like, okay, I assumed he was going to give some sort of answer like that.
Mhm.
So having one in the chamber to be like, okay, you said this. So what about this? I think is really nice, and it helps the flow of the conversation, but also helps for that like second hook in a video. Like, it's obviously the first hook, but if I'm in a short and I'm like 15 seconds along, like I might start to get bored, but if it
Mhm.
rehooks me in with another follow up, I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, now I'm in for longer. And obviously the longer you're in a video, the higher the algorithm is going to push it. And so I would say that that is an edge that you can do. I would also say like, and you've done great, but like having a really strong hook when it comes to the question and something that your audience is going to engage with, I
Mhm.
think is an awesome way to differentiate yourself.
Revan, you worked on multiple campaigns that thought would go viral, but which one was a complete bust, and what were your learnings from them?
I'll answer this question sort of in the opposite fashion. I don't know if I had a campaign that was a bust at the moment. So, knock on wood, it's been pretty great. I will say I've had the opposite in the sense of we've had plenty of videos that we put out that were like, like I don't know if this is going to do well.
Mhm.
Uh, and some of those videos have been our best performing videos. So we had one, um, and when I was doing the podcast Beyond the Records with Noah Lyles. Uh, I was doing all the editing, I was doing all the pre-production, I was doing all the guest booking, all the sponsorships, and so I had done every part of the business, and so, editing was probably the thing I was worst at, and so I had put out this, reel, and I remember telling my girlfriend, like, "This might be the worst reel I've ever edited, like, this is horrendous, like, and I feel so bad, but, like, there's a timeline, we're getting this stuff out," and it was just, like, so bad, and I felt it in my soul. I was like, "This is going to get, like, 50,000 views on a collab post with somebody with millions of, followers, like, this is gonna be
Mhm.
that." And it ended up being I don't know if it was our best reel of that podcast, but it was maybe one of the best. I think it's at 2.4 million views now.
Wow.
It's had over 100,000 likes. So, it was a phenomenal podcast clip, and it just identified with people. I think it also got another, like, 700,000 on YouTube Shorts. So, like, it was a phenomenal, um, result, but I just remember putting it out and being like, "This sucks. Like,
Mhm.
this is not good. I feel, like, ashamed of this work, but I have to put something out because this is what we, like, promised. This is scheduled." I
Mhm.
just, like, couldn't get it right. I, like, worked on it. It just, like, didn't feel right, and I was like, "You know what? Fine." So I think also a lot of it is like, the algorithm pushes stuff, people identify with things, people are more interested in the content than maybe the editing style itself. So, like, there's a bunch of different factors and a bunch of different variables, and, what I say is you can only control the controllables, and so I am very happy that that did well, but
Mhm.
the stuff I could control was loose. So, thankfully, the rest of, the result got picked up by, people just enjoying the content, which is great.
Mhm. So, Revan, for like example, you do something like that and you post a really bad reel, but it does really bad this time. How would your like the people you're working with like respond to that? Would they like be really angry? How would they like deal with that? What would happen?
I think it depends on how experienced the person is as a celebrity or as a influencer, as a podcast host. I think the more experienced you get, the more you realize like sometimes this is just like out of your control. Sometimes
Mhm.
it picks up and does really well. Sometimes you post something that's the best edited, it's got the best content or whatever you think, and it just doesn't do right. Could be the time of day. It could just be that the first 10 people skipped over it. You just like never know. And so I think, managing that relationship and obviously managing expectations when you go into a relationship like that, saying like, "Hey, look, we're gonna do our best. We're obviously not going to guarantee that anything is going to do this well just because it's edited like this. But if we continue to try to do our best, the result will probably favor us." And so I think just saying like, like shit happens, and this isn't going to be the forever. But also like, yeah, if it's on me, like I would take full responsibility for that. And like, hey, look,
Mhm.
it was edited like shit. That's my bad. Like, I'll make sure to make more time. And I think a lot of these relationships, especially with talent, you sort of like, you have to take a lot of accountability because this person's life is also like essentially their career. And so like you can't really separate one or the other. And so you're
Mhm.
dealing with sort of way more than you would in any other career, how people can usually separate their like life and their career. Being an influencer, like you are your career. And so there's a lot of weight on that. And so you just want to make sure you manage that relationship, very carefully.
Before we talk about Jamie AI, I want to ask one last question. And have you posted anything where it makes the person you're working with look bad? And if so, like what really happened then?
I wouldn't say I've posted stuff where somebody looked bad. You know,
You had no intention of it, but it ended up like flopping and like turning like bad on the person you're working with.
yeah, I mean, we've had content flop for sure. We've had videos that went out that did way worse than we thought it was gonna do. I don't know. I think my talent I've worked with so far because, we have a relationship, is pretty good. Um, I would definitely say I'm trying to think. I don't really have too many examples of something that, like, didn't work. Like, it was so bad that it didn't, that it ruined our relationship. I will say, we've posted thumbnails, for instance, that I didn't, get approved with the talent, that the talent was not in favor in. We worked together. I think that's a good story. We had posted uh, a full length episode where the hook was like this very like short moment in the actual episode, and I think our hosts were short of like, hey, like we talked about this for like 5 minutes. Like, why is this the
Mhm.
whole episode? And I'm like, oh, this is what's going to get views. And so I think it's just about making sure that that is a aligned expectation also sooner rather than later, saying like, hey, we're going to post whatever is going to get us the most views because the most views equals the most money. Um, but I actually think we ended up changing that thumbnail just to make it more representative, just to make sure everybody was happy. That's probably a good story there.
Okay, Revan. Now tell me about Jamie. Like, what is it and how did it really come about?
Yeah, so Jamie is a AI co-producer for podcasts, but also I say like the sales brain for advertising teams as well that sell digital media. So that could be podcasts, digital shows, influencers. And so on the production side, how it came about was I had been producing this podcast for 6 months with Noah Lyles, and I was really more focused on the business aspect of selling sponsorships, trying to make sure we got the most money. Noah was probably one of the biggest athletes in the world at that point. He had just won the Olympic gold in the 100 meter, and we had all this traction. And so I really was like, we need to just get out and talk to as many sponsors as we can. And so my time was split between doing that and doing post production and pre production. And I felt like in order to have good post production, you need to have good pre production because pre production makes the content. But I was spending most of my time, call it 12, 15 hours an episode, on pre production. So watching episodes, figuring out, has somebody already talked about this before? If they did, what did the host miss that was a good follow up that I can now say, hey, you talked about this on this interview. What about this? Right. Or finding like new details that they haven't spoken about in an interview, or finding out one moment they mentioned years ago, but it actually went super viral on a clip recently.
Mhm.
Uh, and I should definitely like ask that question again or in a different style, or what stories do really well that maybe I can prompt them to take a different angle. So I was spending tons and tons of time of like,
I wanted to clarify, sorry, before you continue. This is just you alone, or is it just you with the team?
no,
Because you were saying that, oh, I used to do all of the editing and everything myself.
yeah, no, this is me. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, solo. So I'd done everything, yeah, pre-production, post-production, guest booking, sponsorships. Um, You travel booking, you name it, I did everything for that show. Obviously, had some help here and there from some great people, but, I would say 98%, of the work on the show was, me. Um, and, yeah, it was really, yeah, it was challenging. Um, yeah, but, I had some great help, along the way. So, don't wanna, not shout out, Perry and who's my co-founder. So she was great. But yeah, I definitely took the reins on that. Um, and yeah, so I was doing everything there, and I really felt like the pre-production was where I could cut most of my time, so I could focus on post-production because obviously higher views, higher sponsorships, and also selling those ads. And so we're building a separate product with our team, uh, with our CTO Michael, and I said to Michael, I was like, hey, can we just like spin up this like AI co-producer to see like one if it's a good product, but also to see if it can help me do my job. And so we had spun it up. We had used it on a few episodes. It actually did pretty great. And it's just sort of like started soft pitching it to other people I knew in the industry.
Mhm.
Got a lot of great feedback. And so what Jamie did originally was just come up with like the best auto-generated questions by looking at the host past interviews and like just taking inspiration from that and saying, okay, what has done well? and then also looking at clips and looking at deep research. And now on the production side, it's turned into much more than that. So not only has it turned into a co-producer that can write interview maps, run of shows, but it also will analyze your retention, analyze your engagements across all platforms to figure out
Mhm.
what's working, what's not working. So we'll attach data to every line of content so that when your retention fluctuates, we understand why it's going up, why it's going down, and then what you can do about it. Uh, we also have a full corpus of your content library. So if you wanted to ask anything from like, hey, I remember a guest on my podcast said something like this. When was that? We can find it, or find me every mention of Instagram that we've ever mentioned across my 1,000 episodes.
Wow.
And so that's what we do on the production side, and then on the sales side, we basically use that same intelligence, and we had done this in partnership with a few of our customers. As we had built out the production tool, we really figured out there was a need for the sales tool, and so. Especially with a customer, which is called Wave Sports and Entertainment. They're the creators of New Heights with Travis and Jason Kelsey, and a bunch of other phenomenal shows. We'd really built out this sales tool, which not only does all the same things, so you can search the library of your content for anything, especially brand related. Like, find me all the relevant moments to Levi's jeans, right? So if you're pitching Levi's, you can find all the moments that Levi's might want to hear about why your content
Mhm.
is like this, or if you want to find organic brand mentions, right? So you're like out of ideas on who to sponsor, but last week we mentioned Doritos. So now I can clip this moment and say, hey, Carmelo Anthony mentioned Doritos last week. We should work together. Here's why. Boom, boom, boom.
Mhm.
So that's on the sales side. We also make automated decks, so sales decks templated to exactly what your sales decks normally look like, one pagers, and then we have a bunch of stuff when it comes to synthetic focus groups to help replace these brand lift studies or brand lift surveys that are traditionally used. So we do quite a bit on both sides, but it really originated from my distaste for pre-production and just given
Mhm.
the amount of time it took. So
Mhm. So, Revan, what really makes Jamie AI different from human strategists or just like other generic AI tools? Like you've given me a few examples, but I just want to know like what happens after a creator plugs in? Like what edge does Jamie AI give to the user?
yeah, so basically what we do is we'll plug in all of your content, right? So your Instagram, your YouTube, your TikTok, and we'll analyze all of your engagement, all of your viewership data, all your retention data, and then also all of the transcripts as well. And so we
Mhm.
match those to connect that with the data. And then from there, we also have the ability to create a lot of really like custom workflows for content creators, for hosts, for producers, for ad salespeople. And so we really have the ability to look at all of your data, and then that's constantly refreshing. But then we've also built a bunch of uh, continuous workflows that do really well for this specific use case. So how it's different from a human strategist is, could call me a human strategist before. I could not look at thousands of hours of content in a couple minutes and figure out what's working, what's not working. I mean, even looking at 2 retention charts on YouTube and figuring out that L curve, like, I could not tell you why this moment worked and this moment didn't work. But if you look at 1,000 episodes and you can compare all of those moments, you can start to see patterns on what works, what doesn't work.
Mhm.
So, yeah, a human just purely does not have time to look and recount that data.
Analyze all the data. Yeah.
Totally. And then, in terms of, like, what Claude or what OpenAI or any of these, LLMs do is they're great for, general use cases. Same thing with Gamma when it comes to like making decks. But when you really have a specific workflow and you need specific data that is pulled from every different direction, it becomes very challenging to do that as one of these large models. And then also, even if you can do that, make the workflows and clean the data that's specific to what these people are actually looking for. Because, we deal with a lot of different people from producers to chief revenue officers to CEOs that want an overview of everything to
Mhm.
account managers and account executives to marketing teams and insights people. So there's a bunch of different things that you just can't create the optimized workflow for if you're also trying to do insurance and healthcare and legal work and a bunch of other stuff, which these big models are great for. And I would actually really encourage people that want to get into content to actually like download their YouTube and put that into an LLM and like see if they can glean any insights from that.
Mm.
But for content networks and people that have a ton of content where the data actually makes sense to analyze it in real depth across tens of shows, I think this is by far the best. Uh,
AI tool.
so yeah.
100%. Revan, what's the single most smartest move a 20-year-old can make right now over the next 30 days if they want to build a business around creators?
I would say just provide value to people. The first thing, when I met Zach Matthews or Zachary Fick, we had chatted and it was really just like a friendly chat. But I was like, hey, look, I believe I can help. Like I can help with, brand stuff. I can help with connections and collaborations. And I didn't like ask for anything. So it was like, hey, here's who I know. Here's what I think we can do. And I'd love to help. And it was less on like, hey, like if we do this, I could be your agent and like blah, 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 blah. Which I think scares a lot of people because they've heard that pitch
Way
5
too many times. Like,
everybody. And so I think it's not only by saying like, "Hey, I can like add value," but then it's actually doing it. Within the first month of meeting Zach, I had just like gotten him a brand deal. And it's like, "Oh, okay, like this is like legit. Like you're actually like working for me and providing value." Same thing with Beyond the Records. I met Rye Benjamin on a Friday, and on a Monday, I had sent him a deck pitching him, "Here's everything we can do. Here's how we're gonna run the pilot. I'm gonna cover the flights. I'm gonna cover the hotels. Here's, like, everything. Here's the creative angle I'm thinking." And, like, I gave him a 12-page deck to share with Noah and Grant on what we could do with this podcast versus they had light conversations like, "Oh, like, this is gonna be super big and blah, blah, blah." Um
this is what we can do, but instead of actually showing of what you can actually do.
Really
Okay.
putting time and effort into something before there's any monetary value given back to you or promised to you.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people, this is sort of what I say to some of my friends who, they're asking like, how do I ask for a raise? It's like, well, do the work that'll get you a raise before you ask for the raise.
Get the raise, yeah.
If you ask for the raise, they're like, well, you haven't done the work needed.
You don't like, yeah.
Right. Like,
Okay.
can't promise that you'll do it once you get the raise. So this is the same thing, in the sense of like, hey, you have to actually do the work before people can trust you to do future work. And so I'm really big on trying to provide value without compensation upfront to show that like, hey, we can actually do it.
Mhm. And so do you think people like you who wanna try to get at your level, they don't provide value before they receive anything? Is that why they fail? Or is there another specific reason or just another general reason of why they are not as successful as you?
Oh, I won't say I'm that successful. But I think like a lot of it is just like sticking your neck out, like trying to make stuff happen, really like taking action and like taking a lot of action. Like I've tried way too many businesses that have not worked out.
Mhm.
I have cold DM'd, I have cold LinkedIn messaged, I have cold emailed thousands of people and probably have hundreds of responses. And I think people really are like, oh my God, I messaged or I emailed 100 people. It's like, well, I emailed 5,000 people. And, it's like you only need one more, right? So if you have to email 1,000 more people to get one more response, like one more is better than zero, right? Or
Yeah.
eight is better than seven, no matter how many you have to go through. And so I really would say is like it's the bulk that you put in. And I think a lot of people are just like they misunderstand what the actual amount needs to look like, is probably the big thing. And I would say like, I'm really no smarter than a lot of, decently, educated or smart people. Like, I don't think I'm that, brilliant, but I think, like, I will out cold message, I will out persist sort of anybody, I'll follow up. I mean, I was looking at a deal recently that it took 9 months for me to close it, and with one person, I'd followed up 19 times, and they weren't even the person that I ended up doing the deal with. I ended up talking to another person, and then I talked to another person at the same company, and we finally got the deal done. But it took, like 8, 9 months, and I followed up 19 times with one person that wasn't even the person I got the deal with.
Wow.
So it's just like, there's a certain level that it takes to like really get shit done. And I
Mhm.
think people underestimate what that actually looks like.
Revan, what is the biggest mistake or time waster that people like when in their first year of trying to work with content creators, like what was the biggest mistake or waste of time that they'll probably do?
I don't know. I think in general, in business, there's like very core things to your business, and then there's very minute details that people can get caught up in. And I think people spend a lot of time in like, well, like, so if this happened, like I could do this and I could do this. Unless I'm like, okay, well, here's my core business. Here's what I need to like keep repeating. And so I would just say, like, in general, whether it's the creator business, the podcast business, there are very few times where there's more than like five objectives that you have, whether that's you and your podcast or that's somebody else in their business. Like you probably have five core objectives, maybe three, maybe one, right? Like if you're fundraising for your company, your one job is to get that money,
Mhm.
right? It's like you shouldn't be doing anything else. Or if are a person you want a new job, right? The one thing you should be doing is applying to more jobs. Like you shouldn't get caught up in anything else. And so,
Mhm.
when I was, I saw the numbers on this the other day when I was trying to get sponsors for Beyond the Records. I think I emailed 350 brands in a span of like 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, basically grinding every day to try to get as many emails out as
Mhm,
possible. I think I looked and I got like 15 responses or something like crazy, like nothing.
mhm,
And so I think that that was the only thing I was doing every day. I woke up, I said, I'm just going to email like nice custom emails, like 10 brands a day.
mhm,
Probably even, more than that at some point. But really spending the time to figure out like why this was a fit. Now, thankfully, Jamie does a lot of that for people, finding why it's a fit, writing cold emails that are hyper personalized to the content and to the brand. But yeah, I think just like focusing on key objectives is the big thing in life in general too.
mhm,
You know, like if your family, work, and God, like those are the only things you should be focusing on. Everything else is sort of, external that is not probably necessary.
mhm.
So
I wanna go back to, like, the first year question where, like, what would you say is more important for someone working around creators? Would you say it's quality or quantity, and why?
I would say quantity for sure. I mean, quality, it also, it's so, yeah, this is so dependent. Quality, if you're going to do something really long form, right?
Mhm.
Like I'd watch,
Podcast over shorts.
exactly. So I'd watch this video of this guy, I can't remember his last name, but Max something. And it was him running the Moab 240, which is this ultra marathon race in Utah. And this was probably the best documentary I'd seen, not necessarily from a production, but like production and and the quality of the content and just like the overall vibe. And the video did great. This guy's got like 40K subscribers. This video did like 1.1 million views. And I'm sure most of his 40K subscribers probably came from that one video.
Mhm.
Really phenomenal. But he doesn't post that often. And I think that that's totally a fine way to do it. And if you're going to do a podcast once a week and it's going to be a phenomenal podcast, that's also great. If it comes to like shorts and being a creator, like I would say you need to be posting all the time. Um, I wish I had the time to post all the time. And I think there's a huge value in having a personal brand. It's definitely something I've thought about. But like, if you really want a personal brand as a founder, as a creator, I would say the best thing I've seen is people that just post like 3 times a day, every day, no matter what.
It's just chilling, exactly.
But yeah, longer, like high quality content, I think that's the way to go. But it's also consistency, right? So it's just a different frequency in which you can post. On a podcast, like if you post like 5 times a week, it's probably not going to be that high of quality interviews. But if you're posting
Mhm,
once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, I think as long as you can still maintain that quality, you should just be posting as much as possible.
mhm. So, as someone like you who does podcasts and, like, shorts as well, what would you choose then?
In terms of what?
Quality over quantity. It's kind of a mix now, because you do podcasts as well and you do, shorts, so what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, like, shorts, it's definitely, in my opinion, just the quantity of shorts you can put out.
Mhm,
I think over time, you'll get to know your audience, but yeah, long form, I'd probably choose quality. I think it also depends who you're working with, right? So, like, if you have no followers, if you or limited followers, like, you should be posting as many times as much as possible. If you have a real sophisticated brand, already, so, like, you already have 500,000 subs or 1,000,000 subs, or you already are famous, like, then it's quality because people already know who you are. You don't need the distribution in the same way.
mhm,
But I heard this really great thing is like, if I'm posting 100 times a day, right? And every video gets, you know, 10 views or 100 views, I'm getting way more views than if I posted once a day, even if that video did 10 times better than all my videos, right? So I'm
mhm,
constantly getting more reach from posting 100 times a day,
mhm,
right? Or if I'm posting 50 times a day, I'm getting way more reach than if I were to post twice a day, even if those videos did 10 times as well, right? And so I think it's just like until you have a sophisticated, long-standing brand, you probably should just be posting as much as possible. From what I've seen.
mhm. Okay. Revan, you run a company managing creators with billions of views. So, what's the real advantage of being a Gen Z in this space? And, like, don't give me the cliche answer, like, we already grew up with social media and stuff like that. But what do you genuinely see or understand that old operators really miss?
I don't know if it's that they miss. I think it's just that you have the enthusiasm about a product that they don't have. And I think you can really light people up with your energy. It's something, even for Jamie, I just try to go in with the most amount of energy possible because I truly love our product. In the same way, I love the creators that I work with.
Mhm,
So if I can go in with an energy saying like, you need to know about this guy, or this guy is going to do XYZ things for you, and you can really light them up, like, then they get it. They're like, "Oh my god, if he's so passionate about it, like, then I should be too." And I think that's really just in general, and this maybe not a Gen Z thing, but I do think it is a younger thing, especially when it comes to short form content. It's like, "Look, I get it, and I'm, like, super passionate about it, and here's all the reasons why this is gonna work with this." And also, I think, the more data you can have to back that up, and the more experience you can have, the better, because you have all these proof points. And I think right now, sort of the older generation understands, obviously, the power of social media, obviously understands the power of short form content, but there's a certain energy in which, if you're in your 20s, like, you have energy. If you're in your 40s, you probably have less energy, just the way the world works. And so I think coming with that energy really can invigorate people, and, that can rub off on them, and then from them to their colleagues, and to their colleagues, and it just sort of becomes infectious.
Revan, thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. What really stuck with me is that the people you least expect are the ones who are running the show. Like, you've never gone viral yourself, but you're the reason the biggest creators in the world did, with a billion views in 2025. And now you're building the tool that turns all of this into a science. So, Revan didn't chase the spotlight, he studied it. And now he's packing everything he learned into Jamie, so the next generation of creators doesn't have to fly blind. So if you're building in the creator economy in 2026, the message is clear. Data is your edge, consistency is your strategy, and the smartest move you can make is to stop guessing and to start knowing. You'll find links to Revan, Jamie, and everything we mentioned in the description down below. And if you got something from today's episode, subscribe to the GenZEO Playbook podcast wherever you listen. Drop a comment and share this with a person who needs to hear it. I'm Ryan Ali. This is the GenZEO Playbook podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.